Good afternoon, students. Welcoming my 9th class students. Today I start with the chapter Respiratory System. Students, you all know that living organism carries various life processes. These life processes are digestion, respiration, circulation, excretion, nervous control, then control and coordination, reproduction. All these are life processes. Life processes means that the individual carries certain processes to live a life. In the process of digestion, complex food substances, they are broken down into simpler form substances so that they can be absorbed easily. Now the next life process is respiration. What is respiration? Respiration, it is the process in which oxygen is taken in, carbon dioxide is given out and energy is liberated. Respiration is different from breathing. Do not confuse it with breathing. Breathing is only the part of respiration. What is the need for respiration? The need for respiration is liberation of energy. How this energy is liberated and how it is utilized by human beings and living organisms. As energy is necessary for work, it is the ability to carry the work, but how is it liberated or how it is released? See, we have studied in digestion that complex food, it is broken into simpler food and then it is oxidized. How it is oxidized? It is oxidized by the oxygen which is taken in, and this food in its simplest form, which is absorbable form, which is absorbed by the various villi and various cells of our body, it is oxidized. And if you carry a simple experiment on oxidation, if you burn a piece of paper, you must have noticed that energy is liberated in the form of heat or light. This is physical. But what is going in our body, that this simple glucose, it is oxidized and then carbon dioxide, water and energy is liberated. So, summary is, what is the need for respiration? Need for respiration is the liberation of energy. How this process is carried? This process is carried by oxidation of glucose. For this equation, if you see, this is C6H12O6 and this glucose, it is oxidized over here, oxygen, in presence of various enzymes. Enzymes are biocatalysts. They enhance the rate of chemical reaction without undergoing themselves. They carry biochemical reactions. That is the reactions which are carried in our body. Then carbon dioxide is liberated, water and energy is liberated. This energy, it is in the form of ATP. ATP, adenosine triphosphate. This is called as currency of the cell because this is the main source of energy, ATP. Now, if we see this equation, this reaction, it is carried into various steps. What are those steps? The first step for this is that it takes place in cells or tissues. Number one. Number two, these steps are under the chemical steps and they are incorporated with the help of enzymes. Third is that oxidation of glucose, it takes place. Fourth is that energy which is liberated, it is in the form of ATP, that is adenosine triphosphate. These are some basic ideas which this equation it gives us. Now the question is it necessary that respiration should always take place in presence of oxygen? There are certain cases where there is absence of oxygen. So respiration is categorized as of two types of respiration. Number one, aerobic respiration, and number two, anaerobic respiration. What is the difference between two? Aerobic respiration, it is a respiration which takes place in presence of oxygen as well as in presence of enzymes, and we get the end products as carbon dioxide, water, 38 molecules of adenosine triphosphate, as well as heat is liberated as 420 kilocalories. Aerobic respiration, the respiration which takes place in presence of oxygen. Anaerobic respiration, this is the respiration which takes place in absence of oxygen. The best example is fermentation. Over here, end products that we get is lactic acid. Only 2 molecules of ATP are released here. Energy liberated is very less and heat is in the form of energy. So, and this type of respiration, it can be also be seen in our muscles. These are 2 types of respiration. Besides this, it is must that you must know that plants, they also carry the process of respiration. Only a bit difference is there, as well as there is difference between respiration and photosynthesis also. The major difference between respiration and photosynthesis is manufacture of food, whereas respiration is breakdown of simple food. Number 1. Second, in respiration, oxygen is used. In photosynthesis, carbon dioxide is used. Here, in photosynthesis, glucose is prepared. Here, glucose is broken down. So, these are the 3 major differences between photosynthesis, which is carried in plants, as well as respiration is also carried in plants and it is carried in human beings also. Next we come to chemical steps which are carried in the process of respiration. The various steps which complete the process of respiration are as follows. Can someone define or recall what is breathing? Now we will study various steps in the process of respiration. How does this process take place? The process of respiration, it takes place majorly in 4 steps. They are number 1, breathing, gaseous transport, tissue respiration and cellular respiration. What is breathing? Breathing is a physical process, that is, we take in oxygen and we give out carbon dioxide. The process of taking oxygen is also called as inhalation, and giving out of carbon dioxide is also called as exhalation. In some of the books, it is also mentioned as inspiration and expiration. So, what is breathing? Simply, we can do it, take in oxygen and give out carbon dioxide, that is breathing. Next step is gaseous transport. Once these respiratory gases are there in our body, how are they transported to their site where they can be used and given out? That is, oxygen is taken in by the process of breathing. This oxygen, it combines with the respiratory fluid pigment which is called as hemoglobin. I hope everyone knows what is hemoglobin. Hemoglobin, it is a red pigment which is present in our blood. This hemoglobin, it is a respiratory pigment and it combines with oxygen, and when it combines with oxygen, it forms oxyhemoglobin. It forms oxyhemoglobin. This is unstable compound. When I say unstable, I mean that when it goes to the cells, oxygen is given out and hemoglobin, it goes to the blood vessels. In the same way, when carbon dioxide, it combines, it forms carbaminohemoglobin, and this carbon dioxide, when it is given out, it is removed in 2 ways from our body. The way is in the form of bicarbonates, and the second way is it is removed as hemoglobin. Next is tissue respiration. When these gases they are in our blood, they reach the specific cells and they reach specific tissues, right? When they go over there, suppose this is a tissue, this tissue is supplied with blood vessels, oxygen enters here and CO2 is given out. Oxygen is carried by the arteries in the form of oxyhemoglobin, and the CO2 it is given out in the forms in the veins, and then in between there are blood vessels which are called as capillaries. They exchange the gases. So exchange of gases it takes place. Next is cellular respiration. Once this oxygen it has reached the tissues, cells are there. Cells they consist of cell organs, especially mitochondria. Over here, liberation or formation of energy that is in the form of ATP takes place, adenosine triphosphate. That is why mitochondria they are called as powerhouse of the cell. These are the various steps, again breathing, gases transport, tissue respiration and cellular respiration. These are the various steps for the process of respiration. Now, how does this process of respiration it takes place? We will study that. The process of respiration it takes place as we are studying about the process of respiration. We all know that any process, digestion, respiration, any process, it is carried with the help of a system. This system it is made up of organs. In the same way, the process of respiration is also carried by a system which is called as respiratory system, and this system it comprises of various organs which enable to carry the process of respiration that we have studied. Now, the various respiratory organs they have certain characteristics. The first characteristic of respiratory organ is they must provide sufficient surface area. Second is that they must be permeable. Third is gases should be diffusible. That means they can come in and they can go out. Then the layer should be thin which cover these respiratory organs. Now we start. This respiration, like we have seen animals, they have different types of habitats. For example, a frog, it lives in water also, on the land also. So it is provided with the respiratory organs such as gills as well as skin as well as lungs also. Then different fishes, they live in water only. So they have gills as their respiratory organs. Earthworm, only skin is the means of respiration. In human beings, we have respiratory system which consists of majorly lungs. This respiratory system, it starts from our nose. Nose, it is one of the sense organs. It acts in taking in of the air as well as the sense organ for smell also. Nose, it has two openings, and these two openings they are called as nostrils. Nostrils they open into chambers which are called as nasal chambers. Nasal chambers they have hair-like structures, and these hair-like structures they perform function for the filtration of air as well as they function to keep the warmth of the nasal chamber. Next, nose and mouth they open at the back side into pharynx as well as larynx. Larynx, from here starts the respiratory system. Larynx it leads into a tube or a pipe-like structure which is called as trachea. Above the trachea is present voice box which is also called as Adam's apple. It consists of cartilages, vocal cords, and when these vibrations are created then voice is heard. Then trachea, it is a long tube-like structure. This trachea, is supported by cartilaginous rings. These rings, they end at the back of the tube-like structure. Function of these cartilaginous rings is to prevent trachea from collapsing. You must have noticed, if you take a poly bag and fill air in it, fine, it flattens. And if you take out, suck out that air, it collapses. Same is the case with trachea also. Air is entering through trachea, fine. But if these rings are not there to support trachea, then it will collapse. So function of this cartilaginous ring is to prevent trachea from collapsing. Trachea, it leads into bronchi of the respective sides, that is left and right. Lungs, a major respiratory organ. Left lung, it has 2 lobes, whereas right lung, it has 3 lobes. Left lung is bit smaller as compared to right because this side is accommodated to give position to our heart. Then lungs, they are protected by ribs. As you can see this cross section, they are protected by ribs. They are resting or they are leaned on a diaphragm, which is a dome-shaped structure. If we study in detail these bronchi, they branch and re-branch as primary and secondary and tertiary branches, and then finally they lead into sac-like structure which appear as bunch of grapes, and they are called as alveoli. Alveoli are sac-like structure which these bronchi, they end in sac-like structures which are called as alveoli, and these alveoli, they are richly supplied by blood vessels. Now, if we see the structure of lungs are present in our chest cavity. They are protected by the ribs. They consist of muscles which are called as intercostal muscles. They rest on diaphragm. They have a broader part at the lower side and an apex side. Then they have structures which are called as alveoli, which are richly supplied with blood. How does this process take place? Air from outside, it rushes in the nose and the mouth. It comes to larynx. Then it reaches the trachea. From trachea, it goes to the respective side, lungs, left lung and right lung. Over here, alveoli are present. These alveoli, they are filled with oxygen. They are filled with oxygen. Remember that purification of blood, it takes place in lungs. Heart is only the pumping organ. Purification of blood, it takes place in lungs, and heart, it only functions for the pumping of blood. How does this exchange takes place? Blood from right auricle by pulmonary artery, that is deoxygenated blood, it comes to the lungs with the help of blood vessels. Here, alveoli are already filled with oxygen. They are richly supplied with blood vessels. The gases, they exchange. It is the tendency of gases to move from higher concentration to lower concentration. Now see what happens, that these alveoli, they have more oxygen, and blood which is coming from the heart, it has more carbon dioxide. So exchange of gases takes place. Oxygen, it goes to the blood vessels, and carbon dioxide, it comes here. This process is called as breathing, where oxygen is coming in and carbon dioxide is being given out. This we have already discussed. This takes place by the movement of diaphragm. This takes place with the movement of diaphragm. Diaphragm, it moves up, and then carbon dioxide, it is given out. We can also experience this. Once this oxygen is in the blood, it is supplied to the left side of our heart, auricle and ventricles, that we will study in respiratory system. It goes to different tissues. This oxygen in the form of oxyhemoglobin hemoglobin, it oxidizes glucose over there, and thus when glucose is oxidized, energy is liberated in the form of ATP. This is how the process of respiration it takes place in our body.